also on the move today. Ultratech Cement, M&M, Tata Steel also bouncing back today, and IndusInd Bank, a nice 2.5% gain coming in there. What's lagging a touch, I guess, would be a couple of those FMCG names. Bharti Airtel cooling off a little bit today, but otherwise advance decline ratio is definitely skewed towards the positive. Let me welcome in Anil Rego, who's joining us on the show today. Anil, great to have you with us. Let me first get your strategy on the market and really where you feel we're headed now that we've hit these new highs.
Yeah, so when I look at the long term, one is very, very bullish. So I think there's no question that at least I believe that this is the decade of India, and we should see some of the index numbers that we've not, probably even imagined. Okay, in the short term, though, one has a bit of a concern around, let's say, the Nasdaq, and at least my thought is that it has a potential for one more down leg. Okay, and if that particular down leg happens, typically hopefully that will be the last leg and the sharpest, unfortunately. Okay, and if something like that happens, we should see some bit of volatility around India as well. So I would be a little bit, say, cautiously optimistic at this point. For a long-term investor, I think there's no issue. Somebody can come and buy in on the dips if you see good levels, and should do well.
All right, cool. Which pocket of the markets, Anil, do you feel, we're going to actually see further opportunity in, where you feel valuations are perhaps attractive? Or would you be of the mind space that says that go for some of those tried and tested names that are likely to be immune to any kind of volatility or uncertainty in the interim?
Yeah, so I think we've seen a good mid-cap rally, for almost like a couple of years, and that sort of has started coming off a little. So I would also believe that trend may continue a little bit. That large caps sort of and the established names, the big names, may sort of do relatively better. Mid and small caps may, in my view, just take a bit of a breather. But yes, on the valuation side, it's interesting that post-COVID, while you found even the index continue to go up, right? The valuations started coming down as the earnings growth was very good, and that is, I think, something there to last for a period of time. Yes, there may be a bit of hiccups here or there, but I think that hopefully earnings growth has come back to India for a longer period of time, and that I think should drive sort of markets. In the short term, I think, say, the large cap established names should do better. In the maybe there'll be the mid caps and small caps may take a bit of a breather, and possibly then sort of continue once I think the large caps sort of move up again. While we are closer to all-time highs, I think typically when breakouts happen, large caps sort of lead that, and then followed by the mid caps. So I think investors can have a bit of a balanced view, and the dips, if they happen, I think are things to buy into.
Okay, fair enough. In terms of financials, how would you approach the financial basket right now? What's looking attractive to you? Are you looking for any potential movers in the PSU pack as well?
Yeah, so I guess the financials have done well, especially the banks, and the PSU banks, of course, have really turned around and run away. So suddenly, everybody realized the valuations have become attractive. So all the PSU banks started moving up, and probably that's sort of there to stay for some period of time. Though it's run up fairly sharply, so one could see falls in case there's global volatility out there. Similarly, the private sector banks, I think, also are for somebody who looks to invest in stable stuff. You're seeing the credit growth growing, and various parameters around the NPAs. Just to step back, we had a bit of a deleveraging cycle that happened in the previous decade, and this, I think, will be a decade where the leveraging happens. And so if that's the case, I think banks will continue to do well. though they may be a little bit volatile because they have moved up a bit.
Okay, let's go across to Tanya, see what else is buzzing this afternoon. Tanya?
Well, absolutely. First of all, shares of easy trip planners surged almost 16% in the trade today. They were up 31% in the last 2 days as the stock traded ex split and ex bonus. Now, a meeting is scheduled to be happen on Wednesday to approve the allotment of bonus equity shares. Then, shares of delivery hit their all time low today. They were down over 4% on the back of stake sale by CA Swift Investments. So basically, the lock-in period for the pre-IPO investors ended yesterday, and CA Swift Investments sold half of its holding in delivery at an average price of 330 rupees. Paytm shares also took a beating today. They hit its 50. Paytm shares hit its 52-week low after experts from the Macquarie Group said that Geo Financial Services can pose a significant growth and market share risk for players like Paytm. And also, ever since the lock-in period expiry, investors have been diluting their stake in the company. Nike also tanked over 4% in today's trading session. Now, Lighthouse is again likely to sell a stake worth 320 crore rupees in Nike via block deal. Remember, on 16th of November, Lighthouse India Fund sold 3 crore shares of Nike in a bulk deal. Back to you.
Thanks for that, Tanya. Tech names, Anil, let's get your view in on this. Everyone's been waiting for this collapse, which is still to come, but we've definitely seen some of these stocks being plundered in the last few trading sessions. What's your take?
See, it's not surprising considering that actually Nasdaq is down almost like the index is down say 30% on a one-year basis. So that's been really carnage out there, including some of the largest names where people thought they're not going to. There's no chance that they can sort of come down. COVID benefited them, etc. So that is one huge a point that will be a bit of a drag on the technology sector as well. And the second part of it is I'm a little bit negative on, say, the US because if I track market cycles and I'm a bit of a contrarian investor. So the view was from the start of this decade that the US did very well for more than a decade. Okay, and data has shown us that whoever is the leader of the decade then sort of lags for the next 1 or 2 decades, and there's a deleveraging cycle that sort of happens there. So we think that there's a lot more pain there in the US. So a lot of the IT services companies out there, I think, will remain a little volatile. And if because their largest customer base geography spread is in the US, and that's something to watch out for. So I'll be a little cautious on technology stocks, even though they look very attractive. You just keep in mind that when the Nasdaq in the 2000 fell, it fell almost like from 4,800 levels to almost like 1,000 levels. So it's a very very large carnage when they got over the cycle turned. So I would just be a little cautious. Wait for, let's say, the a little bit, maybe a quarter or so, the US markets, if it bottoms out, and that time maybe I would, if at all, I would bottom fish. That's the time I would go and look at it, but I'll be a little cautious on technology.
Okay, slightly cautious. That's the view coming in there from Anil when it comes to some of those tech plays. Easy Trip up 18%, Mazgaon Dock is up 12% today, Cochin Shipyard 6-7%, Varun Beverages, Shriram Transport, some of the others there. Glenmark Pharma's up 2 to 3% as well today. Just taking a look at some of the other movers from the broader markets and anything else that's catching our eye in particular. What are you making of some of the trends in aviation? I know they're limited pickings from a listed company point of view, but just from the way we've seen traffic move, latest data is also out, and the fact that we've got a couple of new airlines coming back into the fray now towards the end of the year. Interglobe itself is, of course, up 1.5–2%. Would that continue to be the preferred pick? Are you looking at aviation as a sector that stands out?
Yeah, so aviation is not something that we've been looking at too actively. But the point of view is that yes, as a sector, maybe it should do well. We don't think oil prices, will go up too much, so that is sort of one benefit. And I think the whole consumption theme that sort of they run, that will do well. I would always stick to the largest and the best. Okay, so We don't hold Interglobe or Indigo, but I would think that if one wants to look at, probably it's better to look at the leaders in the pack, and they also have a whole traction sort of coming behind them. If you go into any flight, you'll find that seats are full. So that is something that will drive growth, and I'm sure the consumption play of India will make them do well for in the future.
Okay. And when it comes to discretionary spends, I mean, is that, are you bullish given the overall outlook on the economy? And I ask because markets are bullish, even though growth, projections are actually coming down somewhat. But markets continue to be bullish, and discretionary is meant to be one pocket that's expected to fly on the back of that. Do you see any risks to this given the current inflationary environment?
No, so I don't see too much of risk to the discretionary spending because I think at India level I think we've continued to do well. The economy has been growing, so it's a little different from say the global setup. Okay, and even if we see a bit of weakness, I don't think we'll go to a recession scenario and go negative. So the growth probably will come down a couple of percentage points, if at all, and probably then get back. So I'm not seeing too much of issues in the long term. But yeah, short term, if there's market volatility, and when I'm saying short term for me, just to mention that is 2 to 3 months. Okay, so is what I would look at it, and in that period, if there's volatility thanks to global factors, then yes, discretionary spending may take a beating because sentiment is very important, right? And you will also find that certain pockets, say, which are tech oriented, and where even the employer is a global corporation, etc. I think there will be tightness in the job market, so that may drive a little bit of weakness in the sort of short to medium term. But I think that will be more than made up for by the manufacturing and the sort of India domestic sectors.
All right, great. Well, talking about discretionary, we'll also go across to Chetan in a little bit and get some more details on some of the action in the auto space. But I'm also looking at, some of the pockets of the market that are looking a little quiet today. Let me just pull up some of those names. Overall, of course, some momentum seems to be intact today, but a few stocks, Max Financial, Solar Industries, a couple of those that are looking a little weak. 3M, Delivery, we just talked about, Adani Transmission. But it's really definitely skewed more towards the gainers overall in today's session. From the industrial segment as well, Anil, and there's been a lot of talk about defense, of course, but in terms of the pockets within industrials, what stands out to you as a theme? Because everyone's always looking out for those multi-baggers or those dark horses that could really come out and surprise. Do you feel that there is some potential within that basket?
Yes, so you may see some of, if you look at some of the other sectors, I think there could be some bit of thing coming in from, so the PSUs, the aviation, HAL and all of them have been sort of doing well, BEL as well. So you have some of these companies which have done reasonably well on the manufacturing, but the only issue is some of them have already come up a bit. Yes, possibly there's a longer term view out there, and that they may do well. But I mean, somebody who picked it up a little earlier would have seen a multi-bagger. We continue to like sectors like, say, specialty chemicals. I think India has a bit of a play out there, and I think that would sort of come in. Auto, if anybody is booking a vehicle, a car, for example, is likely to see a huge waiting period, and so that should sort of give momentum for a period of time, to the sector. So I think a lot of these pockets of, maybe even auto will sort of trigger auto ancillary and stuff. So maybe those are sectors which hopefully, with the auto sector doing well, coming back and taking on the lead in the future. Pharma is the other one that maybe hopefully will turn around, okay, and start doing well, especially if we see higher risk coming in. globally as well. Possibly, I think people look at pharma as a bit of a defensive sector because technology also this time maybe in the mid of the cycle thanks to Nasdaq. So I think manufacturing side is somewhere that I am a lot more bullish and bullish for a longer period of time. So I'm saying, so if you have the patience, I think some of them will then become multi-baggers over the next, say, 3 to 5 years. So that's a perspective that I would have. There will be a little bit of sector rotation in my view, and manufacturing should possibly do much better.
All right, Anil, thanks so much for joining us on the show today. Now, the tax authorities are undertaking a comparative analysis of India's capital gains taxation regime with that of other countries with an eye on possible modifications in the upcoming general budget. We've got Chetan joining us with more on this. Chetan, take us through what you're tracking today.
Well, absolutely. Our sources in the government are telling us that the tax authorities are indeed undertaking a comparative analysis of India's capital gains taxation regime, which really has been a point of contention because remember the polls are also coming up in the country in the next 2 years, and of course the government wants to give some kind of relief for the asset class, especially, and provide relief for investing in the equity markets and of course long-term investments as well. Well, last week, the various news reports quoting the CBDT chairman Nitin Gupta saying that the budget 2023 was expected to announce changes in the capital gains tax. However, he did not give details regarding the changes in the capital gains tax structure that the finance ministry may decide on. But of course, the capital gains tax structure has been a point of talking for the markets and of course for the investors as well. The investors can of course expect some relief, but few investors might also have to face the brunt of the revamp of the capital gains tax structure. So indeed, in times to come, when the budget comes, there would be some good news and for the bad news, possibly for investors in the markets.
Okay, Chetan, this is something that we keep hearing, every year there's always some amount of fear or conspiracy theories ahead of the budget. But, realistically speaking, what are the couple of key things that perhaps this government could look to introduce in this budget? I'm just wondering from a market standpoint, in terms of, we always have a buzz around the capital gains tax, for example, or others that could create a little bit of uncertainty or volatility in the exchange. Could this realistically be one of those events?
Well, Ava, the government has when I in fact spoke to my sources, they were very clear that changes in the capital gains taxation structure cannot be done out of the blue, and it requires legislative amendments. So to do that, the government really wants to do it in a proper way so that no confusion and chaos prevails. For example, if the government brings the changes in the taxation regime in the budget, it will now set the frame for further amendments. But yes, the details are not known yet because until and unless it's approved by the cabinet and of course by the budget, the announcements will not be known. But yes, the government sources has told me that it will be done in a proper way without ensuring that there would be no chaos and the investors' money would indeed be safe and no problems would be accruing to the investors as well.
All right, Chetan, thanks so much for joining us with that. Okay, some other newsmakers, of course, on your screen, as you can see, continue to track some of those stocks that are in the news. But overall, in terms of the markets, it's been a decent session today. Markets seeing a little bit of a bounce back, climb back. In fact, towards the end of the session, the last half hour, probably we've seen even more of an up move. So 300 points on the sensex. Looking at 18,250 on the Nifty, 61448 on the Sensex. Nice 0.5% up move higher after a few days where we were seeing some sideways profit booking. And definitely good momentum across the indices as well. With most stocks, in fact, trending higher. Let's take a look at the gainers again, just to give you a sense of the breakup today. IT clawed back, Reliance was up 0.5%, TCS 1%, Infosys 1.5% there. IndusInd, JSW, HDFC Life, Ultratech, Titan, some of the other names there on the higher side, and that was standing out in trade. Overall, a good day. We had L&T up about 1% as well, Sun Pharma, Titan clawing back again, NTPC, Ultratech as well, some of the other movers. IndusInd, in fact, was up a nice solid 2.5%. On the downside, losers were, of course, limited in today's session, but we'll pull up a couple of those for you just to give you a sense. And continuing to see a little bit of pressure when it comes to some of those tech names as well. So they continue to lag in today's session. Otherwise, aviation was in focus, and we had an Indigo, for example, up on latest traffic figures. SpiceJet didn't really see any action on the back of that. From the mid caps, otherwise, let's take a look at what else was moving. We continue to see some trend in some of those shipping counters. We also saw names like a UCO Bank was up 11%, clearly one of the stars of the day. We'll pull that one up for you as well. Sundaram Finance, Bank of Baroda, Yes Bank from the financial space, couple of Adani names like a Wilma was moving higher in today's session. I'm just going to take a look at any other 52-week highs. A whole bunch of financials been trending on that list. Central Bank, PNB, Canada, Indian, BOI, we were tracking most of them, in fact, through the week. HAL also continues to trend strong. That's another one there that that has been constantly on brokerage radars. Other than that, I think we've been talking about most of them. Apollo Tubes has also been looking good. It has come up now and then in some of our conversations and with our experts. Patanjali Foods was also trending higher. BHEL, 2-3% on a BHEL today. Shriram Transport was also trending higher. So a fair smattering across the board that was looking. And on the loser side, 197, Max Financial, FSN E-commerce was really the tech plays that continue to see some downward pressure coming in. And they were the ones that were lagging, apart from a little bit of profit booking continuing in some of those.